Hi everyone, and welcome back. Today we are going to be making something savory, comforting, a homemade meatball. Absolutely delicious. I make this all of the time and it really couldn't be simpler. It is a little bit of a time-consuming process, so just keep that in mind, but if you have the time, go ahead and make this. You won't regret it. So we're going to go ahead and start in a large mixing bowl. I have 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of ground pork. To that, I'm going to go ahead and add obviously rinsed and washed, and finely chopped parsley. This is gonna be a whole bunch. Not a whole bunch, but like a bunch of them that you would get at the grocery store. And I do wanna make sure that everything that is going into these meatballs is finely minced to as small as it can be. You want everything to really incorporate. You want everything to be evenly spread throughout each meatball as well. So to the parsley, we're gonna go ahead and add 1 finely minced shallot. If you don't have shallots, I would do a finely minced quarter of a medium-sized onion. I have 6 grated garlic cloves here. My garlic cloves weren't very big, that's why I use 6. You could get away with 4 if they're quite large. But again, I grated it to really maximize that flavor and get it spread throughout the entire meatball. I'm also going to go ahead and add 2 eggs straight to this mixture. And these are room temperature eggs, so I always recommend cooking with room temperature eggs or baking. Just gives for an easier time to incorporate everything. All right. Those are done. I'm also going to add a little bit of dried thyme. Now, if you had fresh thyme, of course, fresh herbs are always better in my opinion, but I didn't have any, so dried is just as well. I'm also gonna go ahead and add in some panko breadcrumbs. So I use panko breadcrumbs. I think, again, they're smaller, so they incorporate a lot better. And I really like that dry texture that they bring to the beginning of this meatball. So you're gonna go ahead and just eyeball it. I'm gonna say probably put in 1/3 to 1/2 cup of these panko breadcrumbs. And then to that, I'm gonna go ahead and add, anywhere between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of milk. You don't need a ton. It's not really to add any flavor, obviously, but it does help to rehydrate those panko crumbs and make your meatballs incredibly juicy and steer clear from a dry meatball. So to that, in addition, I'm gonna go ahead and add some salt. This is about 2 pounds of meat, so you wanna keep that in mind. So you are gonna need a bit of seasoning, some black ground pepper. So to the salt and pepper, I'm also gonna add a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. I think that's how you pronounce it. Just adds a little bit more of that depth and savoriness to it. And this is something that is totally optional. I like to do this is a bunch of finely grated Parmesan cheese. Now, if you don't like Parmesan cheese or you don't have Parmesan cheese, like I said, this is totally optional. And you're not gonna actually taste the Parmesan cheese in this recipe. Really what the Parmesan cheese does, in my opinion, is 1, it helps as a binder. It helps to keep the meatballs formed, but it does add this extra level of savoriness that, to me, I don't like to go without it if I don't have to. But again, if you have someone in your life that doesn't like Parmesan cheese or you don't have Parmesan cheese, leave it out. Not a big deal. That's the best thing about cooking at home is, in reality, everything is a little bit of go your own adventure. And so any of the things that I put in here, swap out for different things that you prefer. All right, now with clean hands, you're gonna go ahead and use the best tool in your kitchen, and that is clean hands. So we're gonna go ahead and just mix all of this together, making sure that all of those herbs, the garlic, the shallots, the parsley, eggs, the Parmesan cheese, everything is really well incorporated. And something just in terms of, obviously, you know, you're not gonna eat and test this for seasoning because it's raw. I mean, you do you. I'm not gonna do that. But a little tip, you know, as you're making these meatballs or any kind of minced meat or ground meat food at home, to test for seasoning, all you do is you just kind of heat up a tiny little bit in a pan to see if everything tastes well. And that's gonna specifically be for anything other than salt and pepper. Salt and pepper you can always add afterwards if needed, especially salt. But with some of those other more prominent herbs like the garlic and the shallots and those pieces, if you want to make sure that it's evenly incorporated and really delicious, just cook a little bit on your stovetop, sear it in a pan, and give it a taste. All right. You definitely also don't want to go ahead, you don't want to overwork your meatball mixture. You're looking for it to be able to really come together. You can see even specks of the parsley throughout. Since that's the most vibrant color in here, that's a really good indicator of have you mixed this enough. So I'm seeing really even coats of the parsley specks throughout this meatball mixture. So I'm gonna go ahead and now just let this rest for, I would say, a good hour in the fridge. You do want this to firm up a little bit. And also give all of these flavors time to really meld and marinate and make friends so that every bite of your meatball is consistent and absolutely delicious. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this into the fridge for about an hour. And then we'll come back and form our meatballs. Now that our meatball mixture has had plenty of time, about an hour, hanging out in the fridge for all of those flavors to really marinate together, I'm gonna go ahead and take off the plastic wrap. I did do, as you can see, 2 layers of plastic wrap. One that's pressed pretty closely to our mixture, and then one that just went over the top. And that just helps making sure that, you know, not too much oxygen and air gets in touch with the meat. So it is pretty chilly, so be prepared for that. I just have a regular tablespoon, and again, with clean hands, we're gonna go ahead and start shaping and forming our meatballs. So for me, I like a meatball that's about, what's this size? So it's gonna be about, you know, 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. And in reality, what I'm gonna do, because I feel like if you're scooping and your hands just become a giant mess. So what I'm gonna do is actually go ahead and just scoop them and drop them. Scoop and drop. And then I will go back afterwards and roll everything and make sure that every meatball is consistently even, because that's another piece you want to make sure is each meatball is approximately the same size so that they all cook the same. So I'm going to go ahead, get these meatballs all rolled up, and then we'll take it to the stove to sear them off. All right, now that our meatballs are formed, we were able to get 41 meatballs today. Now it's time to cook them off. Today I'm choosing to sear all sides on the stove, and then create a sort of pan gravy, a pan sauce to stick them in. And so that's what we're doing today. If you wanted to, you certainly could bake these in the oven if you didn't want to have the mess and the splatter of doing it on the stove, but this is our adventure today. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a larger pan, because there's a lot of meatballs, so I'm gonna have to be able to stick them all in here once the sauce is done. So I'm planning ahead. Plus, anything with higher walls usually helps with any of the grease splatter. But you're gonna wanna get this on a medium-high heat, and just a little bit of olive oil. Now that we are cooking with pork today, and so a lot of that fat will render off, but you do wanna have just a little bit of oil to give this a little bit of a head start. We are gonna be searing them in batches. One really important thing is, especially when you're doing anything over a hot surface, you don't want to overcrowd your pan or your, you know, whatever dish this is, because you don't want to drastically drop the heat. So when you're adding cold products to a hot surface, it tries to even things out. So you only really want to be cooking, 8 to 10 meatballs at a time. And the goal with this first round of cooking, this first sear, is just to sear. The goal is not to cook them all the way through. And so we're gonna go ahead and start getting these in. You can already hear that sizzle, and that's what you want to hear right when you drop them into your pan. Is you want to hear that sizzle. That means your pan is hot enough and it's ready to go. I'm gonna get these first set in here. Again, I'm not overcrowding my pan. I'm making sure that they all have plenty of room in between each other to do their thing. We're not dropping the heat at all. All right, and when I'm talking about a sear, you can see that really beautiful golden color that's starting to form on the edge of our meatballs. I'm gonna go ahead and start giving them a flip so we can get it seared off and golden and beautiful on all sides. And again, the goal of this particular step is not to cook the meatballs all the way through, but instead just to get that sear on all sides. I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue to sear and flip all of our meatballs in batches. Like I said, I have about 10 meatballs in my pan at this time. And when they're all seared off and ready to go for the next step, we'll be back. Okay, now that all of our meatballs have been beautifully seared on all sides, now just remember they're not fully cooked. It really is just to get that beautiful color as well as lock in the beautiful juices and flavors that we put together in this mixture. So now that those are done, we're gonna work on our pan sauce or pan gravy. So we're gonna go ahead and get a quarter stick or half a stick of butter, which is a quarter cup of butter, melting in the bottom of our pan. Now this, I have a quarter cup or half a stick of butter in here now because surprisingly the meatballs didn't give off as much fat as I was anticipating or planning on. And so you do need a good amount of fat in the pan. So we're gonna go ahead and get that going. There's also a lot of beautiful fond or dark sort of baked on bits from when we were cooking the meat, and that's gonna have so much flavor in there. So as the butter is melting, I'm gonna take a whisk, kind of whisk some of that fond off, pick up all of that beautiful flavor from the bottom of the pan. And if it's really, really, really caked on there, like mine is, go ahead and actually just add in, just a splash of, you could do a splash of white wine. I'm doing a splash of whiskey. That alcohol actually helps to release all of that beautiful flavor from the bottom of the pan. And we are gonna cook this off. So it's not like you're gonna taste a lot of that whiskey, but the whiskey or the white wine or whatever you end up using does help to create an extra depth of flavor. If you're using white wine, it's actually gonna help lift it and make the gravy taste a little bit lighter. And something dark, like a whiskey, is actually gonna help bring more depth to the gravy and the sauce. So it really is, again, choose your own flavor here of what you're looking for, but you do definitely want to, once you add that alcohol in there, if you choose to do so, you definitely don't have to. You're gonna wanna let that cook off for a little while. We are good to go. So now what I'm going to do, again, that was a quarter cup of butter or half a stick, so I'm gonna go ahead and add in a quarter cup of flour into this mixture and stir this around. So essentially we're building a roux, which is going to be the base of our gravy. The flour is going to be the thickener, and you definitely don't want to taste any of that raw flour flavor either. You definitely want to keep stirring this around, making sure that everything is fully incorporated, and then cook this off for a good several minutes. actually be able to smell the flour and the butter giving off a little bit of a nutty flavor or a nutty smell when it's ready to go. Cook this up. It's also going to get a little bit darker in color, and that's a really good thing with what you want to see. Just keep whisking it around. You don't want this mixture to burn. And as you're getting ready to move on to the next step, which is going to be adding in stock of your choice. Now, of course, the meatballs that we made were beef and pork meatballs, so you, of course, could use beef stock. I'm looking to actually have a little bit of a lighter gravy today, so I'm going to be using chicken stock. You certainly could use beef stock. You could use vegetable stock if you wanted to, but I'm going to go ahead and with some chicken stock, and you're going to want to do this slowly, so just add a little bit at a time and whisk that in. And the flour and the flour mixture roux and the stock are gonna become really good friends. And this is how you kind of see it starting to get kind of clumpy here. Add a little bit more at a time. And you want to add this in stages because you want to be able to get to the point where even though it's extra thick and overly thick, the flour, roux, and stock mixture is still really smooth. So no lumps. You want to have a really beautiful, smooth, velvety gravy. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding in bits at a time. And the thickening of, especially in the beginning of this gravy, happens really fast. So don't be shocked if it's like, holy smokes, just put it in there and now it's all one big giant clump. That happens, it's normal. Don't worry. And go ahead and keep stirring this. It's starting to get really smooth. Still very, very, very thick. So keep adding our stock until it's the consistency that we want. Now we also have to keep in mind that this recipe does make enough gravy or pan sauce to be able to submerge all of our meatballs back in to fully cook. And what that's going to do is, one, finishing the meatballs off in this sauce is going to allow them to fully cook but remain super tender and beautiful on the inside. And it's also going to help create an even more delicious gravy sauce. So we're gonna go ahead and let this continue to simmer. And the longer you let this sauce simmer, this gravy simmer, the thicker it's going to get. So if you need to continue to add a little bit of stock here and there throughout this process, feel free. And again, this is all based on your preference. So if you like a thinner gravy, you don't need to cook it as long, and if you like a thicker gravy, cook it a little bit longer. So I'm going to continue to get this going. Once I get the gravy to the consistency that I like, I'm going to go ahead and add all of the meatballs in, cover it, and let that simmer for about 20 to 25 minutes until the meatballs are fully cooked through. All right, these meatballs have been simmering now for about 30 minutes in this delicious gravy. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. Make sure that they're done. Go ahead and just scoop one out to your plate. Oh my gosh, you guys, this smells so good in here. All right, here we go. Here's what it looks like. Delicious. Cut into it. Ooh. Perfectly done. Very hot. Let's give it a try. Ten out of 10, you have to make. Easy, delicious, a little time consuming, but so worth it. You can taste all of the beautiful flavors that we put in those meatballs. The parsley actually brings a really great freshness with all of the delicious savory notes that we added, like the Worcestershire sauce, the garlic, all of the other pieces. So, like I said, this is a keeper. Make this one ASAP and tell me how you like it. Enjoy.